Hi again, everyone. So now onward and upward on our twisty journey. Next we're going to do what I would say is a complex ribbon cane. Okay, so we're going to use some of our filigrana, either the store-bought or this is one that I made. So just so that you can see, the store-bought one has a little bit more clear around it. But I show you in another video for this month how I made mine. So we're going to go ahead and we'll use some of mine. We'll need a base color, so I'm going to use this happens to be Reichenbach Deep Black, but it could be any intense black that you want, or any color that you want that is fairly saturated. Because again, you're going to squish it flat like we did with the ribbon cane, and then we're going to decorate each side with some of my filigrana rod. Okay, and then you'll need some clear, which I think I'm about out of clear here on my station, so I'll put some clear. You'll want to have your nippers handy, and you'll want your parallel mashers. Potentially a handheld marver is fine. And then I like to use, like I said before, I like to use Pandora-sized mandrels as my punties. Light up. So what I'm going to start with this time is my core of my ribbon cane is going to be the Reichenbach Deep Black. But my absolute favorite black that I use is Hades, which is a sim color. But intense black would work for this. We're going to encase the whole thing, so there's not going to be any chance of webbing. You just want an intense black. You don't want a regular black cane. And if you want to do a different color than black and white, you certainly can. You just want to pick a color that is saturated for your core. Alright, so it's not a very big gather, because again, I don't want to make a huge twisty, and these can get decently sized once you're working on them. So I'm heating up my ball here, and I'm going to smush it down. I don't want it to be super duper flat, but I want it to be fairly flat. And it's not very big. So what I'm going to do is now, I'm going to do a quick covering of this black core with some clear. I'm going to go around the edges, because that way I make sure that my edge isn't going to creep out of my twisty. So it's always the edge is usually what I do, one of the first things I do to make it so that my twisty doesn't end up with ugly black lines poking out the edge or the sides there. And then I'm just going to do a quick swipe on each side of my pancake with my clear to give it a coating all the way around of clear. I'll flip it to the other side and do the same thing to the other side. When you're working on ribbon canes like this, you want to make sure, as closely as you can, that you're making the same amount of, you're putting on the same amount of clear on both sides. Now to make this so that I don't add any bubbles, I'm just going to heat one side up and smush it a little bit, because now I'm going to lay my filigrana rod on each face. So that's totally encased in clear at this point. I'm going to take my filigrana rod. I'm going to decide how many lines I want to make on either side of this. Usually I just do 2. It's enough extra interest without getting too overzealous. So I put a line, I heat up where I want to put it, I heat up my filigrana rod, and I marry the two together. And then I swipe, I nip it off. I'm going to go ahead and put my second one on this same side. Heat up where I want to lay it. Heat up the filigrana rod, lay it down, and then snip it. So now I have 2 of my own handmade filigrana rods on that one side. And I'm going to go ahead and deal with this side. And by deal with this side, I mean to fill it in with some of the clear so that these guys don't just decide to pop off. And I'm going to start by just keeping it warm, making sure it doesn't pop off. And I'm going to get this clear, super duper clear, and I'm going to smush it down in there. Okay, so the key is getting your clear super clear so that it will fill in every crevice. And that is smushy. You call that smushing. I'm going to go ahead all the way down it and make sure that it's completely filled in between those 2 lines of white with clear. Now, picking one side or the other, I'm going to do that same smushing. I'm getting my clear nice and hot, and I'm smushing down into it on the edges of my filigrana. Alright, so that was one side. So that's clear. It's clear in the middle. And now I need to make this other side clear. So my clear is getting nice and hot. And I smush it in there. And this is just trying, your goal with this is to try and make as few air pockets as possible. Alright, so that face is ready. Alright, as far as we're going with that face right now. So now I'm going to work on the other side of the face. Other side of the pancake. Just going to heat it up, make sure it's got some insurance heat in there. I don't want anything breaking. Now I'm ready to lay down my filigrana on here. I heat up where I want to put it, and I heat up the rod of filigrana, and I'll lay them together and nip it off. Go ahead and do my second one on this side too. And then nip it off. Okay, and I'll get my clear again. So you can see, I've got my 2 lines on this side. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing that I did on the other side. Just to heat up that clear really well and squish it in there. Heat up that clear really well and squish it in there. Now if you decided to put more than 2 lines and your area between them isn't very large, what I would suggest would be to use either a stringer size of clear to do your squishing, or to do the swiping before you put on your next, do a swipe of clear before you put on your next, lay down your next piece of the filigrana. Okay, so now that side is done. Now, they're not quite rounded on either side, so now I just need to fill in with a little bit more clear. And they're kind of mushy-gushy, lumpy at this point, so I'm just going to use some heat to encourage them to flatten out a little bit. And the only reason I do that is so that I give myself less of a chance of getting big air bubbles. Okay, so I'm just superheating that clear that I just added over top of my filigrana rods, and then giving them just a little rest on my marber. Alright, so now they're flattened on both sides. And I'm going to swipe on a little bit more clear. Just to round them out a little bit more. And keeping in mind, if one side looks like it has way more clear, like you smushed in way more clear, you want to go on the other side and add that same amount of clear. That is the only drawback of doing the squishing in method, is you may add a little bit different amounts to either side. Alright, now this guy is pretty close to being a circle now, so it's ready with just that one extra layer of clear. Excuse me. Get off the remnants of my last twisty. Alright, so now I'm going to heat up the end. Actually, before I do that, I almost forgot. When you have the filigrana rods, you want to make sure that they come with you, that you don't lose them. So what I do to make that happen for sure is I put a little cap, just run over them with the clear, and this just helps to make sure that they're all capped off, and they're not going to bleed through anywhere, and they're also all going to come with you when you do your twisting. So I put a little round of clear, cap of clear on one end and on the other end. Now I'm going to heat up the end that doesn't have the punty. I'm going to heat up my punty so that it can go in there and stick. Once they're all nice and hot, stick the punty in, go up, down, right, left. There you go. Now it's going to hold on to all of that clear and black and filigrana in there. So now I'm just going to turn on my outer flame so that I can heat this puppy up quick. Again, if you haven't watched any of the other videos on the twisties that I've done, I heat from all angles. It heats it up faster and it heats it up more evenly, I have found. It also allows you to change position a little bit so your shoulders don't get too tired. Alright, so then I do the center as well. And once it starts moving and feeling like it's potentially ready to be pulled out, I'm going to take it out of the flame and I do the accordion. Does it all go in together? Does it all come out together? The answer on this is yes. It's nice and ready, and it's not too hot that it's just gonna end up on the floor. Okay, so I'm twisting with one hand, one direction, the other hand goes the other direction, and as it gets cooler, you have to twist faster, and you're pulling that whole time till you get the size that you want it to be. Alright, so that's what this one is going to look like. And again, I'll show you pictures of all of these so that you'll have an idea of what you're trying to make. I'm just using, personally, I'm using black and white for these because it's so noticeable. Okay, so I nipped off the end there, and you can see those pretty white lines over top of my black, and my black isn't oozing out of the sides because I put that cap of clear over it. Alright, so next I'll see what other ones I can think up, and we will continue with having our twisty fun. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks, bye.